passion and pageantry of college football lives here. This is the Paul Finebaum Show, Hour 3 podcast.
This might be college football.
We're back, and we still have 2 more hours on a Monday afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Some very good guests. So we have one more joining us from Gainesville in a couple of minutes. Let's check in with AC in Bangladesh.
Mr. Finebaum, how's your weekend, sir? Thank you so much for taking my call.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, let me ask you, first of all, I want to wish it's just that I get caught up with a lot of things. I want to wish Amen all the best. Keep fighting. That's all you have to do, and keep praying for the best. That's all you can do. That's do what you can control. I think that's the best way to put it. But let me ask you a question. I'm trying to understand this. Where was John in St. Louis driving on Friday night, Mr. Finebaum? He said he's going to drive 7 or 8 hours. Where was he going, Mr. Finebaum?
He was going to Durango, Colorado, where he is expected to stand trial, I think tomorrow, on charges of trying to disrupt a moving train.
Interesting.
I'm not an expert in train law, but I believe that we will have one on here tomorrow.
Well, let's see what happens, but I don't think that's the reason. My sources confirmed he drove 7 to 8 hours all the way to whoop AJ's ass. Holla.
I would drive, John, if he did that effectively. Let's check in with Johnny B. up next. Johnny, good afternoon. Johnny did not answer the bell. We'll check in with John, who is up next in North Carolina. Hello, John.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I usually record the show and then watch all of it, but I'm a little behind. So I was curious, though. I don't know if you've touched on this yet. All those reporters, Talton and Dodd and all them, the way they do the quad rankings in the basketball, why can't they put it together for the football and then make sense of it? I agree with you on the SMU and like Indiana thing, but what do the numbers say? Who should have been in? What's the deal? I don't know why they can't come up with that if they hadn't already. I hadn't seen anything.
I hear what you're saying. I don't think there was really any clear and convincing clarity on where it should have gone. I mean, the most eligible, the problem was you had Miami, you had Alabama, right. South Carolina, and Ole Miss were the next group of schools. And, I mean, we could have debated all day long which one belonged in there more than the final team, which was SMU. And, I think that, frankly, all of them did. But in the end, they chose SMU because they had just played a heroic game the night before against Clemson in the league championship, even though they hadn't played anybody all year.
I'm a huge Bama fan, but I don't think they should have been in it. Not the way they ended.
Well, no, I understand that. I didn't either, but ultimately, if you wanted to be objective about it, Alabama was a better team than SMU. But that's not how they choose these things.
Yeah, and I knew when SMU, even Sean McDonald, whatever his name is, the guy who broadcast the game, he said SMU will not make it playing like this. Then they turned it around. Yeah, they came back and all that stuff. They still, they lost.
Hey, John, thank you very much. Yeah, ultimately, there was no good choice for the 12th one. This time around, if this thing gets implemented, then Alabama or Ole Miss, I guess Alabama would have gotten in because they would have been the next highest ranked. Johnny B, we'll try him one more time.
I thought AC had said something and cut the whole thing off. I got cut off, but thanks for taking my call. And,
Thank you.
I got some good news for you, though. As long as we got Brad and Bash and Chris on here, you said it'd been 10 years since you'd had a colonoscopy, but they got enough time up your butt that we could just ask them what's going on up there and save you a copay.
They gave me the report today. No polyps.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good. They got that Zoom thing. They just run right up in there. Good to go. But earlier in the show, that David, the preacher from Alabama, 34-year ministry, it kind of shocked me that he didn't like I-Man. It's a man of the cloth, and I don't know anywhere in the Bible it says anything about if you shouldn't like Alabama or Auburn people. I thought it was like everybody, but now that man's sick, the preacher all of a sudden likes him, and I just found that funny. Or you go to church based on what you wear. I guess.
Yeah, no, he was essentially He was essentially judging somebody on what he said, but then he said he doesn't judge, and then he said I didn't like Iron because he was an Auburn fan. That was pretty funny. I mean, by the way, I mean, I'm sure we could find a theologian who would either find he was correct or incorrect, but they're not hard to find. No doubt.
And the earlier caller there mentioned on something that we've talked about before. We can word slaw or word gumbo all this rankings to death, but until they get some sort of get some bookies on there, get somebody like Lenardi. Even though he's a basketball guy, it's obvious he has a formula that's pretty credible.
Yeah.
And let him and come up with something. And then the best thing we can do for basketball is keep Dick Vitale out of it. I know he's an old guy, and I know he's overcome a lot of things. I'm not knocking him for that. But the dude thought he was at a Big East game. He was talking about Patino. He was talking about everybody but Nate Oates and the Crimson Tide. He thought Kentucky was still relevant. And he has now lived so old, he's become a diaper dandy. So that's about all I got to say. Thanks for taking my call.
Daryl is up next. Hello, Daryl.
Yeah, how are you doing, Mr. Finebaum?
We're doing great, thank you.
I'm kind of conflicted on a couple of teams that are trying to get off the bubble, but Arkansas and Illinois. And I appreciate you having Mr. Lenardi on there because he knows more about the nuances of teams getting in or out of the tournament than anybody in the world, I think.
He does.
But I think right now, with a few more wins, which I think they will get, I think Arkansas actually deserves to be in the tournament more than Illinois. And there's a
what bothers me about Illinois is they're on the biggest stage of the season yesterday, and they just absolutely throw it away.
That's the truth.
They're not even competitive.
And what makes it hard for me is because, but you have to call it as it is, not how you wish it for it to be. Because Brad Underwood used to coach at Stephen F. Austin before he coached at Oklahoma State.
Right.
And he led us to 3 conference championships in a row here in Nacogdoches, Texas. But right now, I just cannot see with that.
Well, when you look at Arkansas's schedule, I mean, they have a chance to win out.
Yes, they do.
It's not easy, but they play really 2 of the weakest schools in the league, and I think they could easily win both, and then it's a matter of how they handle that final game and maybe a game in the tournament. But yeah, Arkansas is definitely they're in the tournament as of today, and they have a good chance of maintaining that. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Ed in Pensacola, you're on the air. Hello, Ed.
Hi, Paul. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Thank you very much.
I'm 93 years old. I'm a retired physician. I graduated from the University of Tennessee in Knoxville and the University of Tennessee Medical School in Memphis.
Oh, absolutely.
And I wanted to tell you a couple of incidents. There used to be a train that left Memphis going to Knoxville called the Tennessee. I boarded that train in the fall of 1951, and a few days before, Jim Thorpe had been at Christian Brothers College in Memphis demonstrating drop kicking.
Oh, my goodness.
Most people don't know what drop kicking is now.
Oh, sure.
I boarded that train, and lo and behold, Jim Thorpe was sitting in the coach, and I and 2 or 3 of my friends spent the whole 8 hours going to Knoxville visiting with Jim Thorpe. And it was just an enlightening experience. I don't know whether very many people know about Jim Thorpe.
Hey, Ed, I mean, you're talking about Jim Thorpe, and he is considered the greatest athlete of all time.
Right. An Indian tribe. He went to the Carlisle Indian School.
Yes.
He went to the Olympics, and he had some of his gold medals revoked because he had played semi-pro baseball. But a lot of people don't even know who he was.
Ed, was he approachable? I assume he was.
Oh yeah, we had a wonderful time. At the time, I think he must have been about 65 or 70 years old.
Right.
And we visited, I and my classmates visited with him all the way up to Knoxville. The second thing I wanted to mention
that
to
is
you,
unbelievable, by the way.
Bob Kessling just retired recently.
Right.
Well, I remember John Ward was a fraternity brother of mine in the University at Knoxville. He was a law student when we were in the same fraternity. He never practiced a day of law.
No.
He and Bill Anderson became the voice of the boss.
Right.
And coined the phrase, "It's football time in Tennessee." 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Give him 6.
Sure.
All of those things. I'm sure you remember.
Oh yeah, no, I knew John very well. It was an honor to know him too.
Yeah, well, he was a good friend of mine. The last thing I want to mention, this is a little bit, Bruce Pearl, when he had that recruiting violation at Knoxville, and lied to the NCAA, and as I understand it, coerced some students to lie, and was banned for basketball for 3 years, and then ended up in Auburn. I just don't know how I feel about that. What would you say?
Well, yeah, I'll tell you, a very close friend of mine was Mike Slive, who you may remember as the commissioner of the SEC. And
right.
I don't know, and he would say things to me that maybe he wouldn't say publicly at times, but when he found out that Bruce Pearl had lied to him, he was absolutely heartbroken. Because and it took a lot of coercing for the commissioner to allow Bruce Pearl to go to Auburn. It wasn't a slam dunk by no means, because he had just finished his 3-year show cause, and only because I think his relationship with some people at Auburn, namely Jay Jacobs, did he finally agree to it. But he did it. He put Bruce on a very short leash.
Right. Well, he never lost his popularity at the University of Tennessee.
No, you're right.
And his son played for him when he was up there.
Yes. By the way, Ed, what type of physician were you?
I'm a urologist. I specialize in urology.
Oh, sure.
Like I say, I'm a double graduate from the University of Tennessee. I bleed orange. I'm a ball through and through. I remember when there was no such thing as Rocky Top. And you possibly did. Were you there when Conrad Holloway played?
I actually got there right as he was leaving, so I saw him for 1 year.
Right. Well, I saw Johnny Majors play. I watched. I called you before and told you that I was probably one of the few people alive that saw the last game that General Neyland coached.
Oh my goodness!
In 1952, I remember Hank Lars when we won the national championship in '51. Hank Larsella. We had 5 or 6 all SECs and 2 All Americans on that team.
I mean, they always told me that 51 team was by far the best team ever.
Well, they ran the single wing.
Right.
It was in the Ball Stadium, Neyland Stadium, just had 2 sidelines, no ends at all. But anyway, it was just absolute. And you remember they had some Football Hall of Fame members on. Doug Atkins
that was an amazing team.
They just did not run around John Majors.
By the way, I had and you probably know or know him. I spent about 8 or 9 years ago. I spent the day at Pilot with Jim Haslam Sr. He was on that team.
Yes, he was. He went on to become the mayor of Knoxville. I think.
Yeah, but I mean, he was telling me about that team, and that was. I mean, it was an amazing football team. You're absolutely right.
Right. Well, anyway, those are gone. Good old days gone. Like I say, Neyland had to leave twice to go to the military.
Right.
He had 2 stints away from Tennessee, and John Barnhill, who went on to coach at Arkansas.
Oh yeah.
substituted for him when he was gone. But anyway, those were some good old days at the University of Tennessee. Like you, I hope, I'm an ardent Tennessee fan.
Well, I am. Ed, I can't tell you what. I don't think that Jim Thorpe story is truly remarkable. I can't thank you enough for sharing it.
Well, it was wonderful. He had, like I said, he had all his gold medals revoked.
Right.
Because they found out he had played semi-pro baseball.
That is well. Thank you, Ed. There's no way to top that. I had the honor of meeting Eddie Robinson. Introduced me to him. Jesse Owens one night at the very beginning of my career, and you talk about Jesse Owens, Jim Thorpe, easily in any conversation as two of the greatest athletes in the history of athletics. We'll take a break. What an incredible call. We'll take a break and come back with more of your calls right after this.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
We are back, and John is up next. Hey, John, go right ahead.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to mention that Jim Thorpe's medals were restored to him. I think it took a while for it to happen, but his medals were restored. And my dad used to talk about Jim Thorpe and how much he, liked his endurance and the way he played and everything. But that's all I wanted to say.
Well, I'm glad you cleared that up. Thank you very much. Good to hear from you. Let's check out Johnny up next in Kentucky. Hey, Johnny.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
We are doing great. Thank you.
How's your wife doing, Paul?
Johnny, I appreciate you asking. She is doing great.
Well, I want to let you know, October the 4th of this year, I lost my wife of 43 years.
Oh, my goodness.
And she loved watching the show. She got a tickle out of me talking to you on the phone. But,
Johnny, let me ask you a question. Was it something was it a progressive illness, or was it sudden?
Well, she'd been doing dialysis. I took her to dialysis on that day, and I got a call a couple hours later saying that her heart had stopped.
Oh, my.
And so by the time I got to the hospital, she had done passed.
Oh, my goodness. Well,
that
is so sad.
I was calling you about Kentucky and the SEC. This is a wild ride for the SEC this year, and our Kentucky team with Mark Pope, I think, is doing a fabulous job. But without our two guards running that, I think it's been a little up and down. But I think we'll get together here and.
Johnny, I watched the game the other night. They got off to a really good start, but you're right. It ultimately catches up with them.
Yeah, they just don't have nobody. We got two young freshmen there. They're doing fabulous. They're Kentucky boys. They're doing great, but the other two boys were missing them bad.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, Paul, I just wanted to tell all the callers that let's love each other instead of fussing with each other, and this world will be a better place. And thank you for
Johnny. Thank you, and again, I know it's never easy moving on, but we are so sorry to hear about your wife.
Well, thank you, buddy.
Thank you. Let's talk soon. Thank you very much. Let's continue right now with Jackson down in Alabama. Hello, Jackson.
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
Very well, thank you.
I just wanted to talk about Auburn basketball. I'm sitting here in our Rec and Wellness Center in the hot tub, and just reminiscing on our Auburn basketball team, and they're absolutely killing it this year.
Yeah, listen, we had Lenardi on about an hour ago, and he said it would take Auburn would have to work really hard not to be the number one seed. Hey, listen, thank you for the call. We are waiting to head down to Florida. Our man Mike Griffith will join us from a very special event that he'll tell us about. We're coming right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
We are back, and let's check in with Parker, who is in Alabama. Hello, Parker. Parker, you there? Josh is up next. Hello, Josh. Go right ahead.
Good afternoon, Paul. How are you doing, sir?
You're doing well. Thank you.
My question was basically, why do we need a playoff selection committee when we could easily use the old BCS analytics to determine the 12, 14, or 16 best teams, and then let those analytics speak for themselves? Why do we even need a selection at all, other than, to generate revenue from people being interested in who's going to get picked and who's not?
You're probably right. I don't think this committee is worth a flip myself, but that's the system that these commissioners have agreed to. They're meeting again tomorrow. I don't think they'll jettison the committee, but in many ways what the SEC and the Big Ten are doing is a vote of no confidence in the committee.
And
they're taking certain things out of their hands.
It's not about a selection. It's more of a pageant now,
right,
in my opinion.
Well, you're right. You're 100% right. The BCS, for all the criticism, and everybody hated it, did a pretty good job. I don't remember them screwing up at all. Hey, thank you very much for your call. Let's check in with Joe, who is in California. Hello, Joe. Go right ahead.
Good afternoon, Paul.
Good afternoon.
I'm calling to comment and register a very strong no vote on the proposed changes in the college football playoff system. To me, the biggest thing wrong with the 12-team playoffs we just had were the automatic, you get in automatically if you win a conference championship. Nick Saban opined against that a year ago, and I agreed with him then, and I agree with him now. However many teams you have, if it's 12, for example, it should be the 12 best teams get in based on their record, their performance. Conference championships should just be another game to take into consideration. I just think that this naked power grab that the SEC and the Big Ten are reaching for now is tawdry, tacky, and it's certainly not very sporting. So I'm totally against it.
Joe, I hear you loud and clear. It is a power grab. That is not in dispute.
I fear they'll kill the goose that laid the golden egg, because the big appeal of college football, aside from pulling for your favorite team, is the sport itself. And the only way that's going to continue to be appreciated at the high level it is if everyone looks at it as a fair deal. Nobody's dealing off the bottom of the deck. Nobody gets an extra ace up their sleeve. Everybody plays by the same rules. That's what sports is supposed to be about. It's the rest of life that is unfair. At least on Saturdays, we ought to be able to enjoy a good game that everybody plays by the same rules.
Well said. Thank you very, very much. Vance is up next. Hey, Vance.
Wow. That was a wonderful call by Joe. That made sense in anyone's book. What if this gentleman, and your call screener told me his name, and I've already forgotten it, Paul. I didn't write it down. The gentleman you talked to earlier, he had a beard, and he was talking about the power grab of the Big Ten. And
Mark Shipper.
I really liked what he had to say, and I thought he made a lot of sense. And when you talk about, well, the Big Ten found equal footing right now in their mind, and they're like, what? We're going to go for as much as we can get. First thing that came to my mind was the Roman Empire, and then Genghis Khan. When you see an opening, go for it, conquer and go there. Germany, for God's sakes. I couldn't agree with that man more either. I think he was a great guest. And I want to talk about this kid Braxton.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
The one who said he asked me if I thought Tony Vitello was the greatest baseball coach of all time.
Yeah, but it's what he said. Paul, it's what he said many calls. How old is that young man? 13?
I believe I've met Braxton. I believe he's about 14, something in that vicinity.
Are you sure he's not 30?
He was on he came up on our show in Knoxville this year. I can confirm that.
I mean, God, I was dangerous as it was, but if I had a mind like his at that age, my parents would have thrown me out of the house. That's a man. I got to give him credit. So I have nothing negative to say about anybody. I've enjoyed your show today, but real quick, yeah, I'm glad they restored those medals to Jim Thorpe, which almost broke his spirit completely when they yanked him. And then it's like, they're going to put Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame posthumously here. And what's that going to do? What did it do for Jim Thorpe, and what's it going to do for Pete Rose?
Not very much.
So, I hate to end it on a negative note, but starting out with a great week, in my humble opinion, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Vance. Good to hear from you. Rick is up next in Tennessee. Hello, Rick.
Hello, Paul.
Good afternoon.
I heard you talk before about your dad was in World War II.
Yes, sir.
And my dad, he was in Okinawa in World War II.
Ooh.
Then I was during the Vietnam era. I didn't go to Vietnam, but I was in that era. But I was wondering if you'd be interested in getting that Tunnel to Tires guy on your show to try to take that money for veterans.
Yeah, no. Who is that again, Rick?
Well, I don't know his name, but they could find it out on there.
Okay.
He's always the guy that represents Tunnels to Towers.
We can find him.
And your audience, I've heard so many veterans and people that take up for veterans on there. I believe it'd be interesting 5 or 10 minutes.
Well, listen, I appreciate the suggestion, and I will. I'll make sure we figure out exactly how to go about that. But I appreciate you sharing that.
Well, if you do, would you sort of advertise it a little bit so I know ahead of time?
I will. I'll be happy to do that, Rick.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll take a short break here. More to come. Another hour and 15 minutes remaining on a Monday afternoon.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Back, it's been a while since we've heard from Larry from Missouri. Do you think Jim Thorpe could break a figure 4 leg lock from Greg? Anyway, let's check in with Jeff in Columbus, Ohio. Hello, Jeff.
What's going on, Paul?
Jeff, what's up?
Hey, I heard you early in the show. I think you were trying to take a shot at the Big Ten, saying we're the SEC's drafting partner.
Correct.
I mean, I'll accept it as long as we got Tennessee and Texas pushing us right up into the front, right into the lead in the title, Paul. I'll draft with you anytime if they'll push us right to the front. What do you think about that drafting situation?
Sounds good to me, Jeff.
Yeah. Hey, I was down last week in one of your favorite parts of the country, Paul.
Where's that?
Southwest Florida Gulf Coast, man. It was nice.
Beautiful.
I mean, people are asking about you down there.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. When you getting back down?
I haven't been down there. Probably not till May, if I had to guess.
All right. Hey, but it sounds like I said the SEC and Big Ten are basically business partners now. It sounds like this alliance is getting stronger and stronger, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's some people down here who don't like it. By the way, did you happen to see the Brad from Macon debate with Ari Wasserman?
Oh, yeah. I said Brad did well, but Ari scored a 7th-round TKO when he basically said that once they lost the third games, Alabama and Oklahoma, Ole Miss, they weren't gonna leapfrog Indiana with having 3 losses compared to 1 loss from a superpower conference. Even the BCS wouldn't have moved them up over a team that had 2 less losses. You know that.
Well, listen, I didn't, as you know, I was not exercised over the way it turned out. I got on ESPN Sunday morning and could not make an argument for Alabama at all.
No, they blew it. I mean, Ari was right when the SEC teams have a 1-game cushion over Indiana, but you're not going to give them a 2-game cushion. It ain't going to happen. Whether it's right or wrong, it ain't going to happen, Paul, and you know it.
No, I do know that. That's what, I don't have a problem with it. I don't. We had this guy on earlier, Mark Shipper, who lambasted the Big Ten and the SEC, saying they're being bullies and they're essentially cutting the rest of the country out, and it's going to come back to boomerang. I don't know. I kind of listened to him with a high degree of shock. I don't know if you heard him or not, but
that's just the people that aren't on top crying right there. I mean, that's just the people that aren't up at the top for whatever reason, blaming the big boys that got their way to the top, and they're basically crying about it. But you know what's interesting, Paul? It feels good to be in one of the two superpowers, doesn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, we've been there for a long time. Welcome aboard.
No, we could debate that on another time. But can
Not
you
really,
imagine? Hey, can you imagine, Paul, if you were a fan, say like Chris in South Carolina, J.K., Judge Chris, and especially Danny Cannell. And when you're on the outside looking in, and you're basically told to sit down in the back of the room, and we'll let you know when you can speak. Can you imagine being a fan of one of those conferences?
It is. Well, Jeff, always great to hear from you. And let's go back to the Zoom and the aforementioned Brad.
Mr. Paul, thanks for taking my Zoom call. And Jeff, by the way, it's a TKO. It's not a TKO. TKO was a split decision. And I don't know if you heard, but the godfather of college football said, I won the debate. It's all fine.
I thought that was interesting that he only heard what he wanted to hear. And listen, I'm the host of this show. I don't have many powers. I'm ruling that decision from the guys in the other room null and void. I am declaring you the winner. If they want to go to court, they can sue me.
That's right. They can sue you.
I don't think they have the power to.
Hey, Paul, talking about these automatic qualifiers, you know, people are going to get kind of riled up. It's not going to affect the SEC too much if they do it. We're going to get our teams in, and that's the way it's going to be. We might get one team in there if they do automatic that might be a little less deserving based on what you said the other day. It could be an 8-4 team or something like that. But it's not going to change very much. We get in our teams. You know what makes me mad, Paul, is we recruit the players, we develop the players, and the Big Ten, or should I say the Little 10, and the other conferences buy the players. They should have to pay us some kind of compensation for using our resources to provide them players. What do you think about that?
No, well, the problem is, Brad, there are a lot of flaws with what the SEC and the Big Ten are doing, and I was not happy about it. That is until I heard the other side. And the whining and crying from Mark Shipper and from all these other people is...
Yeah.
I'm sure, you know who I think is probably still crying? Ari Wasserman, because SMU might get left out, or Indiana well, Indiana won't get left out, but I'm sure there's some... I'm sure that bleeding heart will find somebody who got disrespected because the bullies are now in charge.
Well, I know he's walking around with that dumb-looking red mustache he still got. But, hey, Paul, somebody had my name come out of their mouth. Can I address that before I let you go?
You may, sure.
I mean, I was going to say, speaking of ass, Johnny B, you've been sitting on your ass the better part of the winter. Because last time I checked, the grass wasn't growing and the weeds wasn't going. And you probably got Goodyear tattooed on the side of your side, bud. So I'm just telling you this. When it does start to happen, you finally get out of your house and start going back to work, put a little extra air in your tires so that zero turn to haul your fat ass around all these yards you're going to be cutting.
Well done. Thank you very much, Brad.
See you later, man.
Rick is up next in North Carolina. Hello, Rick.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for taking my call. I appreciate it.
You bet.
I just want to say one thing in empathy. I'm undergoing treatment for cancer myself, not near as serious as I'm in, but I hope he does well. Mine's melanoma, and they're treating it with immunotherapy, which seems to be working. But I know what a strain and a stress it is. And Jim is just, I don't know what else to say. Jim is one of those people that drove me away from going to church, a so-called Christian. He doesn't deserve to be on your show unless he calls in with an apology. Otherwise, you should keep him on.
I agree. Rick, first of all, listen, I'm glad to hear things are going better, and we're all thinking of you, and thanks for sharing that message.
Okay, and basketball, just real quick, I think the SEC looks great. I've been following basketball since I was a student, and I saw Pete Maravich play at LSU.
Oh, wow.
And I love the game. I'm just scared we're going to beat each other up just like we did in football. Texas, Georgia, and Tennessee just weren't the same when they got to the playoffs because we beat each other up. I hope that doesn't happen in basketball. I hope we win the whole thing, whether it's Auburn or Bama or whoever. But I just would like to see it, and I love to watch the women play. They are tremendous, and the LSU ladies got as good a shot as anybody. I love watching them all play. Thanks for letting me air, and you tell Iron to hang in there and get through it because he will.
Rick, thank you. Be well. Continued improvement. Let's check in with Matt next in San Antonio.
Hey, brother. I wanted to say to Iron Man before I give you the good news. Iron Man, I hope you get better. You've always been there for me, too. You've always been family to me, like a brother to me, man. I hope you get better, and I really do, because I want to see you someday. And I want to be able to meet you as well. And as for the good news, I had to go to the other room. Look, Paul, I don't need you guys to find me a lawyer. I found a lawyer who handles guardianship cases for special needs individual adults like myself. I finally found one. As soon as I get enough evidence to take away guardianship from my mom, I'm taking her to court. I found a roommate, I tell you, for Department of Special Needs. That's part of my plan. And I wanted you guys to tell you the good news in this. I love Iron Man too, and I hope he gets better. And I love all of you for being there for me through this journey of me struggling so bad.
Thank you for listening to the Best of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast. Watch the Paul Finebaum Show weekdays from 3 to 7 Eastern on the SEC Network. Plus, you can listen and watch on the ESPN app.